my fight against His Majesty Skalla, one of my 2 losses at this tournament. One of the things that we want to do when we watch video is focus on the ones where we lose. Because when we lose, that means there were mistakes. We were less than perfect. We could have done better, right? And that means that there are opportunities here for us to do that. And so let's take a look at one of my losses.
So, for context, this is before he's His Majesty, not by long, like 45 minutes later, he wins crown, right?
Yeah.
So, on the left is Wilhelm. We'll refer to him as Skalla because that's been his nickname, Wilhelm Skallagrimson. So, if we call His Majesty Skalla or Wilhelm, apologies to confuse anyone. And then Helgi here on the right is actually here doing analysis with us. So, I'm Sir Avery, that's Sir Helgi.
Sir Augie.
Sir Augie just took a bite.
Sandwich?
Rowan, Caradwin, and Finner.
Rowan, Caradwin, and Finner. Okay, so
One sandwich?
this is right off the bat. I always try to look at a couple things, especially for newcomers. One, this is SCA combat. It's tournament combat. This is an important tournament.
Avocado.
We're also determining who has sandwiches. So they're both right-handed. Skalla is taller. He's also got a much larger shield, the Dipylon shield, which has those cutaways on the left and right. Those don't really leave you very open to anything, so there's not much of a disadvantage to having those holes. Can't really see Helgi's shield, but it's rectangular and also center grip.
Yes, you do.
Looking at them, Helgi's got a sword leg forward stance, so he's got a little extra reach, which compensates for the fact he's got a bit shorter sword. Skalla is fighting sword leg back, so he's got more defense. And if I'm not mistaken, both of you have thrusting tips, so you can stab.
Yes.
All right. Almost done with the bookkeeping details. One hard blow to the head or body ends the fight. One hard blow to a limb disables the use of that limb. All right. Let's take a look at the first entire fight. Let me get some volume on this bad boy, too. So, obviously really careful about range, right at the extent of Helgi's range. He's throwing for that face. It doesn't look to me like a real threat, and Skalla is... that's a strange position that he was using all day to win crown, and it looks like he's ready for the thrust to me. He's also giving a lot of ground. It's a big field.
He's changed his feet, too.
Yep, he swapped up, so he's sword leg forward. Very good pick, Rowan. The other thing is, this is something I just want to call out, because I'm going to get back to it. Skalla's given a lot of ground, and Helgi's getting him towards the edge of the field. So it's just something to take note of.
Yeah, it won't last long.
Helgi opens with the thrust again. With that shorter sword, it's a little tricky, especially now that Skalla's got that right leg forward. So it looks like Skalla's trying to countershoot, really, as he's looking for an opportunity. Deep offside, Helgi picks it up. And Helgi lets him out of the corner there.
So just out of curiosity, Helgi, did you notice the leg switch?
On him?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Because when you first started, he presented sword foot back. Then when you got into kind of range, he had a sword foot forward.
Helgi lets him back into the, more towards the center of the ring. Looks like Skalla's relying, he's attempting to land that offside. Helgi lets him back away from the ropes again. One thing I'll point out too, it's a little tricky to tell because the color and contrast isn't real clear. Helgi's holding his shield, I'm exaggerating it a little bit, but it's, I'm not very good at drawing in 3D space. But that is a little bit more rotated than some people would hold their shield. They might hold it totally vertical, or even a little bit the other way. And that's sort of a signature style for you, having this point here. And we actually saw a video earlier today with another knight who was fighting that way. But it changes the angles that I think Skalla is able to throw in. And meanwhile, this sword that you have at this angle is offering some protection to that offside Skalla wants to throw.
So is that almost like the way a heater, a strapped heater would be?
To me,
that point angle kind of high up.
To me, it's the opposite. Because a heater normally it's the other point that's angled up. Usually the left for a right-handed heater fighter, It lets him away from the ropes again. For a left-handed heater fighter, the back shoulder point is down and the front point across the body's high. There's that offside shot again. They're up against the ropes again. This time there's a hold to let Skalla out. So Helgi, do you recall if that hold was called because he was on the ropes, or was it called because of the leg shot?
It'd have to be you don't call a hold for the leg shot, so it had to be.
Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah, that was the rope right there.
Okay. So, and then, so that time it got pushed to the hold. The reason why I wanted to point that out is that's the fourth time that you got him up against the ropes. Mm-hmm. There's a rule in Caid that if you push someone, there's a rule in the whole SCA. If someone becomes helpless by hitting the edge of the rope, the edge of the field, and a hold is called, and that happens repeatedly at the marshal's discretion, that fighter loses the fight after 3 times.
So we changed the rule.
No.
So Caid. So that was a Caidan convention.
Well, that's a society law. There's a Caidan one that says after 2, you're legged in the middle of the Eric. Right. So there's a double rule. One. So in either case, all I want to point out is it was a courteous move to let him out of the corner the first few times. The last time you had him there, I'm not saying you would have just eliminated Skalla by pushing him into the edge, but he would have had to change his strategy and not let you do that a second, third time. If you had pushed him into the ropes and held him there, the marshals would have had to call hold. He would have been warned, and then he would have had to change his strategy.
So I think that one of the big reasons why I lost this fight was I didn't come in quite prepared for Skalla's thrust work from his and once he had me on my legs, had me on my knees.
Oh, you're talking spoilers now.
So, the truth is that the point at which I lost this fight was when he took my leg, right? This fight goes on for several minutes, but that was the point at which I lost the fight. And Skalla is very good at controlling the range and using that thrust, and he also uses that arm as bait.
Yeah, he's got his arm forward, sort of vulnerable, tempting you to throw at it.
So go back just for 2 blows real quick, because Fitter, this is the other thing I was talking about you. It looks like he throws 2 thrusts. The first thrust is the setup. Right. And you don't have to pull back enough because you get the energy from the block. Because it looks like he thrust right at the top of the shield.
Yeah, just pop into it and not overcommit past the thrust.
Right, but that's going to set up the second thrust. If you see it, so it'd be I think it's this pass right here. Nope. No, it was past.
Oh, I apologize. I didn't go back far enough.
So basically, the first thrust, you don't need that recovery is far back because you already have the energy. Right. So it's that kind of double thrust.
And honestly, your thrust, the power you get from it shouldn't be from you reaching your arm out. It should just be from sliding even just a couple of inches forward. That puts your body weight behind that thrust. And it will hit way harder than if you try and reach out with it.
Yeah, if you look, Skalla's not straightening his arm so that the tip of the blade would come out the back of the head. But he is getting his shoulder rotation down, and he's using his body to drive it a bit. I often thrust with the arm a little bit, depending on where it's going, usually not to the body. And it's not necessarily even a good strategy. Because when you throw a thrust with the body behind it, the arm's still bent, you can still land a really hard thrust.
That was a nice combo. Didn't land, but it was a nice combo.
Who's that marshal on the left?
Harold. Who's the guy that travels for doing the video?
Kevin Monday.
Yeah, Kevin Monday. I forget his SC name.
I'm totally Kevin's SC name.
Well, he's one of the best dressed marshals.
That's what I was noticing.
Hands down.
Nice clothes.
Lantern's Keep.
All right, so the other thing, I don't know that... This is a tricky spot. Obviously, Wilhelm is an incredible fighter, and if you expose yourself, he's going to punish you for it. But if he's not going to get in close very frequently, you might need to get after him. Nice block, Helgi. I think other people might be tempted to try to block that with their shield. I think you were wise to sword block that. There are ways to close ground while kneeling that are legal and fast, and you might be able to catch him with it. Without going the way that Sir Adam goes, then we don't really get a good angle on that thrust, but that one just managed to get in, and one of them eventually will, right? If you're staying at that sort of range...
And look, this is part of the convention that we have with the way we have chosen our rules, right? We've chosen that when you get hit in the leg, you go down to your knees, right? There's a certain amount of absurdity to that, because if I've hit you so hard in your leg that you can't walk anymore, the fight is over. I mean, you're talking about a crippling injury at that point.
Yeah.
If we were doing something like counted blows, a leg shot becomes a point, but we still maintain the same advantage. It's still an equal test of my footwork to get in against to get into the range I want against his footwork.
Yeah.
When you're on your knees, it's no longer has that.
The dynamic of the fight totally changes. It is a definitely an SCA peculiarity. I have seen other organizations, like LARP organizations, that use foam swords that will like hop on one leg, which is also sort of an absurdity. It's sort of it's no more absurd than what we do, right? And I think the time will eventually come where fighting while kneeling is no longer part of the rules, right? Like if you drop to your knees as part of a combo or something, like you get back up again, it won't be banned that you ever kneel. But I think sooner or later, sometime in the next few decades, SCA fighting is going to move past knee fighting, probably.
Yeah, that is my hope. I'm hoping that we can, allow our sport to evolve.
We have so many cool people in the room. I bet if we just decided to take legs as kills, everyone else would just follow along.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah, and you've got you've got such nice outfits, Augie. You don't want to get it in the dirt.
That's gonna happen.
You got to remember, I've written the rules enough times. So
So all right, first fight of the two went to Wilhelm Skallagrimson. Okay, so this time let's take a look. All right, now here's a big moment psychologically. Stepping back on the field, fight 2 out of 3.
No, 1 out of. This was the first.
This is the second fight now.
Right.
Yeah. So at this point, for you it's do or die. You haven't changed your fight too much, but right off the bat it looks to me like you come in a little higher energy. Probably saying, I'm not going to let this get me down. I'm going to show Skalla he is going to have to watch his ass. Right? That to me psychologically is what you're saying in just these few opening seconds of this fight.
So that the thing where Skalla in that first fight, Skalla beat me. He stood it. He was out at the very edge of range and was able to poke at and cut at me. And I knew I didn't want to get myself in that position again.
You were almost entirely in his range the entire fight, and he was only in your range a couple times.
Right.
Yes,
because he's got the longer sword, and with that dipylon, he cuts down more angles than you do. The couple times you got in close, it was a danger time for him, but he was able to manage those. But at this range, it's his game, basically.
Yes, my most comfortable position is fighting inside. I like being inside, not necessarily body to body, but
right there. You can see where you're comfortable.
And there he takes my leg again.
Can you go back real quick on that combo? So
and this was.
What do you see in Roan?
That's what I'm trying to figure out.
Nice ground close.
So, overhead.
There's the leg. Nice tight snap. Now, at this point, you've called the shot. It may not be obvious to people watching the video, but you're just moving away from the edge of the Eric before you drop to your knees.
Right.
So that's not necessarily super... But basically, this shot that's blocked really tight. So, that shot lands. It looks like it might be a hair flat. You can't really see the...
red.
You can't really see the color on the sword or anything like that. That one might be, but it's also sort of scooping up at the same time. It's one of those ones that's a little tough to tell.
Yeah, but he's got that basket hilt that has a down the center. It's creased.
Yeah.
So if you look at that, it looks like it's off a little bit right there.
Might be. Tough to say. The other thing is we don't necessarily know that the edge of his sword is aligned with the front of the basket hilt. In the case of, you'll see on Helgi's sword, it's super duper clear because you got that day glow green on the sword and on the hilt, so everyone can tell where your edge is. With a red and black sword, matches his outfit. A little more difficult to tell on a compressed YouTube video.
So what I was seeing is that first shot that he threw, it looks like he's actually grabbing that energy from right there, that return.
Yeah, takes that
Drives in
power.
shot. Maybe not. It looks like the sword did something weird.
Yeah, I think it was sort of a bounce, but what he does is if you watch...
It bounced back into him. That's what it was.
It's a good movement. He takes the step forward with his foot, recovers... The tip is already back off the bounce. The tip of the sword goes back. The hand goes over the head. And then that allows him to uncork.
Yeah. But you'll notice he threw the shield to occupy Helgi's sword space.
Oh, yeah, he definitely had to get that up there. And he's not blocking the sword. What he's done, which is wise.
Basket held up.
Well,
He's blocked the arm.
No, he blocked the space.
Yeah, exactly. So instead of putting the shield where Helgi's sword is, what he's done is he's put the shield where Helgi's arm is, where he's going to have to go through that space.
Right, he's going to have to go around that shield or clear the
Yeah.
space.
So he's not blocking the weapon. What he's doing is making it so the weapon can't really strike at him from that position.
And
Let's
this
go
is
back to that space and time conversation.
and this is also another example of what happens when you stand up straight. Right? That would have been a very, very easy block if my legs were just even slightly bent.
Yeah.
But while I keep my center of gravity fairly low as I'm coming in, once we get to here, I get stood up. And
Well, you're stretched up. I mean, isn't that your basket hilt up in the top right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you've just thrown... You can see that you've reached for this one, because very seldom do we see you step up on one foot like that. Now, you're not off balance, right? You're actually... It's actually really beautiful. If we just
Ballet
look.
move, practically.
It's just really beautiful, if we watch what you're doing with your legs down here. But we don't see you come up with a lot of shots. It's not really your style. And it's pretty easy because he's giving so much ground. Mm-hmm. The blow you're throwing doesn't look like it was going to be effective against someone who's backing up. Right now, if he had been standing still, there's a chance that could have landed. But he wasn't going to stand still. And at this point, now you let the momentum stop. Here's the other thing I want to call out. You're letting him away from the Eric again, the edge of the Eric. And I'll call this one out because he won Crown. Yeah. We're allowed to pick on his techniques so that he can't win Crown 2 more from him. Earlier that day, I saw him, I'm going to draw on the screen, against Sir Jamal, back into the Eric. And then when Jamal slows down and gives space, he rotates out to the side and throws a leg shot. He did that against Jamal twice. Mm-hmm. Maybe 2-3 rounds earlier, the exact same shot, and that's because Jamal slowed down because he didn't want to run him into the Erics, the side of the Eric. It's sort of a courtesy thing, but we have a rule there. He could have kept going, and it would have been a hold instead. He steps around to the outside, and just like Jamal, you did not rotate to face him.
Yeah.
So he takes, and he's already stepped that way, and he throws the leg. So I had literally watched him throw that 10 minutes earlier twice against another fighter. So now that we've called it out on video, and I know His Majesty watches these videos, he's going to have a new strategy. Otherwise, he's just going to keep winning Crown.
Well, you could
he's a good king, so we just got to keep him on his toes.
Fake the rotate left and then turn.
Yeah, then he steps the other way and rips us with the offside. Okay, I've got to ask at this point. We could watch this play out, but first let me ask. What are you going to do different this time? I know in your head you're thinking, I know how this went down the last round. What am I going to do different?
What I'm thinking is that he's leaving his arm out. He's putting with his arm so far out. That's the only target he's really giving me, and I have to work towards either popping that or something. That's the only way I'm going to ever get close enough to
because he's got just that exposed arm right there.
Right, and this is a bait.
Yeah,
as we will see.
So fade the thrust. He's faking the.
He did the same thing. Yeah.
There's that triple. Yeah.
So we can't see where that thrust lands. I'm communicating that I felt it was high.
Yeah.
The third one, right?
Yes.
So did the first two? Did he go after shield, or he was actually trying to use that as a?
It usually when I'm trying to face a thrust, I'll switch off between picking up one with that back corner that I keep right by my ear,
Yeah.
and then a head movement for a second, so I can get one with the point and the other with a head bend or a slight.
That's good because, one of the things that a lot of people do is if they pop block, as soon as their shield comes down, their head's in the same spot.
Right.
Right, and they lean right back out into it. Yeah, surprisingly tough to land a decent face thrust against someone who's moving their head. He's being really deliberate with his foot placement too. I bet. I think this camera's on a tripod, so.
Yeah.
Just inching forward, inching back.
Looks like he's a little off center too.
He's leaning for sure. If you look at his body position, he's actually, it's a little difficult to see from here, but his feet are pretty much in a straight line. So I have a feeling that if we looked at things from above, he would have a foot like this and a foot like this. Sorry, more like there. But in a line, right? Most of the time when you see him fighting, it's more like this. Right, like he's got a more wide stance.
Yeah.
But here, when he's going for the thrust on the leg, like when he's standing against a kneeling opponent, going for the stab, he's got a much narrower stance.
Right. So just back up just a pitch right before so a little bit more. Right there. So right now it looks like he's kind of centered on Helgi. Mm-hmm. Then it looks like he inches off to.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah. So
left a little bit.
Helgi's knees are here.
Right.
And his foot's right in the center.
Right. So then. Watch as he comes in a little closer. He kind of moves a little bit to
the right.
Yeah,
it does there, but with the 3-pop one, he moved to the left more to crowd Helgi's sword.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So if you again kind of occupying that space, it's just a little bit of a cheat that gives him more target and Helgi less target.
Yeah,
I think because right there it kind of looks like he kind of inches toward the left just a pinch. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think you're right. And then the other thing is, he's comfortable leaning here because I think he knows you're not going to chase him. It's really tough to chase someone on their knees, but I bet if he was fighting Adam, who's known for moving on his knees a lot, he couldn't lean back because he'd be too committed, he'd be leaving his legs open. But you've established that you're going to shuffle a little bit with your knees, but you're not going to really move a lot. So he can go off balance, reset, go back at you. Mm-hmm. And you saw he also leaned over to the right, went off balance, got out of range, reset, and went back. You're not necessarily keeping the pressure on him here. Like here, he feels pretty comfortable leaving his head open. He's got really quick defense. I'm sure he could lift his dipylon and get his sword up in a hanging guard if this knee suddenly shot to here and you threw a high shot. He'd probably be able to get a defense, but it would definitely be keeping him aware of the threat.
Oh, you hit him low?
Yeah, I got him in the knee, apparently.
It's tough to tell with poofy pants. I got to warn people. One of the things that I really like that I've seen a lot of fighters do in different areas is they'll have a cord tied around where their knee is, like right where the target is, or they'll have a piece of trim that conveniently is at the height that shows their opponent. Helgi, you've got those nice white pants.
That's where I tried to take his arm.
You throw for the arm. Kind of hard to see, but you throw the offside for the arm. Is that right?
Right.
You reach overhead pretty far to get it. Looks like an overhead and then arm extension. Is that right?
Yeah, it's kind of a Molinet sort of motion, but it's coming in at about just slightly off.
Yeah. It looks like a Molinet because you start to drop the tip down and the basket goes from here a little higher. But then it goes into a linear arm press, and you can see that what Skalla does is just reach over the top of your blade. Your blade comes in here.
To lift up his arm.
And
the pylon.
And he just crosses the shield. It's pretty far over his body. Like, this would feel a little awkward for me because he's got to get his arm up over the top of his own shield, but he picks up the block, and then he is able to throw over the top of your weapon and down. and you see he's got to come off that back foot to get the angle down on you, because you're probably not giving him much, but you watch this back foot come up, the body goes forward away from the camera, the tip's got to whip all the way around and down. And you can see it sort of, it looks like it comes clean off the head, but he's got to be way forward to get it in.
He's also closed in on your sword in doing that. You know, I think it's probably pushed right inside that opening.
Yeah.
Well, because my sword is out, as soon all he has to do is roll his wrist like this.
Yeah.
Right around
Right?
it, yeah.
And so it comes in, all he's doing is extending his arm out and then rolling at that shoulder, and because he's getting 270 degrees of rotation, he's getting a lot of tip speed.
And you can see, like, there's plenty of power with it. It also looks to me like he rolls his knuckles away from the camera towards the camera, so his knuckles are almost up. It's a little hard to draw, but he sort of rolls the hand up. If you look right here, and now he's got the wrist cranked back, and as he drives the elbow's down here, the shoulder's rotating across the body, the hand gets yanked, and the hand is canted back, so the wrist is open and back towards the camera right now, and then that allows the blade to travel in that really tight arc.
Yeah. So did it hit you on the side or the back?
Look at the head, right?
No, his head.
Is it head?
Well, yeah, the side of the back of the head. I thought it was the side of the back of the head is what I thought you meant.
Hit me right on the top.
Okay.
Cool. All right, well,
Thank you,
Peter,
everybody.
You seen anything? I haven't heard much from you.
Not so sure I'm qualified to make a lot of it. Sure you are.
Well,
I'm not.
part of this is an exercise for you too.
Yeah.
You know, even if you're saying the stuff that we're saying, you know, part of this is an exercise for you to learn how to critique a video, and
Well,
Especially that
Observe
that
it.
last flip of his wrist, like how Skalla set up his shot. That's a skill to me for you to pick up super well.
yes.
Right?
Yeah. All right, well, thank you guys very much.